Hello, everybody, and welcome to what is the 14th episode of The Artist's Well. I'm delighted, as many of you might know, it's Culture Night in Ireland. Well, it was actually last night, but most of it closed over to the weekend. And we like to mark it by doing something different. And it tends to major on literary figures and so on. So I've asked our guest to come along and do some readings for us. Now, this chap is called Paul O'Hanrahan, and Paul is artistic director of the Dublin-based Balloonatics Theatre Company. Yes, you heard right, Balloonatics. He's an actor and producer who specialises in theatrical representations of Irish literature. He has twice won the Edinburgh Festival Awards for adaptations of Joyce's Ulysses and Finnegans Wake. Every year in Dublin, he presents street theatre and readings based on Ulysses and re-enacts the opening episode of Joyce's great epic at the Joyce Tower in Sandycove. This summer, he's also led walking tours in the city based on the poets Patrick Kavanagh and W.B. Yeats. A teacher of literature, he is a master's in Joyce research from York and a doctorate in German and contemporary literary studies from the University of Liverpool. So please join me in welcoming Paul O'Hanrahan. Paul, thank you very much for agreeing to come on The Artist's Well today. I know it's a very busy time of Culture Night and all that. And I know you from a particular event that you conceived and have been doing for a good number of years in Foxrock, which is very close to where I live. And Beckett, Samuel Beckett, was born in Foxrock. And you came up with this idea of doing a Beckett walk, which you do during the summer every Sunday. And it's a hugely popular event. People from all over the world come along to that. And I've had the pleasure of acting as, warden, I think they called it, at some of those events. And that's how I got to know you. But you are somebody who has a particular specialization in theatrical persona, and specifically literary persona. So why don't we go straight into it? Because I know you've got quite a full program for us. And I know you're going to start off with some Beckett. So maybe if you'd introduce that.
Thanks very much, Alan, and I'm really grateful to you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
So, Beckett's Night and Bloom's Day, starting with Beckett. I think it would be fair to say that Beckett was more of a night man than a day person. The young Sam loved to walk in the evenings in the Dublin and Wicklow Mountains and look down through the dark on the light from the lighthouses in the bay, the names of which, Kish, Bailey, and so on, his father taught him. I'd come out in the daytime to the heather and gorse, all warmth and scent, and watch at night the distant city lights, the lighthouses and lightships my father had named for me when I was small, and whose names I could find again in my memory, if I chose. In Beckett's 1946 novel, What?, the night sky also provides the backdrop as the eponymous protagonist goes to Foxrock station in the early hours of the morning, climbs over a fence to enter the platform, and takes in the extent of the view along the railway line. He admired the permanent way, stretching away on either hand, in the moonlight and the starlight, as far as the eye could reach, as far as Watt's eye could have reached. And look there at the judicious use of permanent way, at once the Harcourt Street track and, metaphorically, the fixity of our journey through life. In Beckett's novel Molloy from 1955, here's what the narrator has to say on our nocturnal theme. No, there is not much to be said for the night either, but compared to the day, there is much to be said for it. And notably, compared to the morning, there is everything to be said for it. The bulk of the population have no part in it, preferring their warm beds, all things considered. In the 1958 play, Krapp's Last Tape, darkness is intrinsic to the vision that Krapp experiences on a stormy night on Dun Laoghaire pier by the anemometer or wind measuring device. The vision at last. What I suddenly saw then, great granite rocks, the foam flying up in the light of the lighthouse, and the wind gauge spinning like a propeller. Clear to me at last that the dark I have always struggled to keep under is in reality my most... Here the tape recording breaks off. The next two words are unshatterable association. After the war, Beckett realized that he had to write about the darkness in himself. His own moment of revelation occurred not on the pier, but as he himself said, in his mother's house in Foxrock in summer 1945. Here's how he expressed his perception of the darkness in himself in The Unnameable, a novel written in the 1950s, starting by dismissing his characters as artificial inventions. All these Murphys, Malloys and Malones do not fool me. Only I and this black void have ever been. And the lights, yes, out with them. There is no light, no grey either. Black is what I should have said. Nothing then but me and this black, of which I know nothing either, except that it is black and empty. Then that is what, since I have to speak, I shall have to speak of, till I need speak no more. The Beckett-Joyce connection. Let's start in 1927, when James Joyce published a volume of poetry, poems penny each. Hot off the press, Beckett gave a copy of it to a fellow student at Trinity College, his Foxrock golfing friend, Bill Cunningham. This is the first indication we have that Beckett was reading Joyce. He was just 21 at the time. A year later, in 1928, Beckett went on to win a scholarship to the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, where he met Joyce through the poet and fellow student Thomas McGreevy. He became one of the group of helpers with whom Joyce surrounded himself, and helped Joyce with the writing of Finnegans Wake, which Joyce started in Paris in 1922 and finished 17 years later in 1939. Beckett wrote an essay to help promote the book and also contributed to the translation into French of the Anna Livia chapter. Joyce thought that Beckett would make a suitable match for his daughter Lucia, who was just a year younger than Beckett. But unfortunately, she suffered from a mental instability. Beckett and Lucia socialized together for a while, but in 1930, Beckett had to make it clear to her that he was not interested in developing a relationship with her. As a result, Joyce made Beckett persona non grata in his household, and the standoff lasted well over a year until 1932. During this period, Beckett returned to Foxrock and lectured at Trinity for 4 terms, but he found he was not suited to academic teaching and left in December 1931. Before that, in July, Beckett visited Paris again and met Joyce's son, Giorgio, who was a year older than him and an occasional drinking companion. Beckett stayed in the Hotel Cornet, where Joyce himself began his Paris career as a medical student 30 years earlier in December 1902. The bedrock of Beckett's writing is a profound insight into life's limitations. As he summed it up in Waiting for Godot, the light gleams an instant, then it's night once more. Also in that play, Vladimir has a moment of reflection in which the business of daily life is seen as a fleeting illusion. Was I sleeping while the others suffered? Am I sleeping now? Tomorrow, when I wake, or think I do, What shall I say of today? That with Estragon, my friend, at this place, until the fall of night, I waited for Godot. That Pozzo passed with his carrier, and that he spoke to us. Probably. But in all that, what truth will there be? He'll tell me about the blows he received, and I'll give him a calash. Astride of a grave and a difficult birth, down in the hole, lingeringly, the grave digger puts on the forceps. We have time to grow old. The air is full of our cries, but habit is a great deadener. Joyce skimmed through Beckett's book of short stories, More Pricks Than Kicks, when it was published in 1934, and was as complimentary as he could be towards a fellow writer, declaring of the author, "He has talent, I think." Just before Christmas 1937, Beckett helped Joyce with the correcting of the proofs for Finnegans Wakes, for which part of the payment was a waistcoat and tie of Joyce's, now to be seen in the Joyce Tower in Sandycove. Shortly afterwards, in January 1938, Beckett had the misfortune to be stabbed by a pimp. Joyce played a paternal role, visiting Beckett in hospital and paying the hospital costs. Joyce's wife, Nora, cooked Beckett a custard pudding, while Joyce also ensured that Beckett's mother was informed. She subsequently came over from Foxrock to visit him, as did his brother, Frank. Beckett last saw Joyce in Easter 1940 in Saint-Gérand-le-Puy, the village near Vichy, to which Joyce had moved en route to take refuge in Zurich. Less than a year later, in January 1941, Joyce died in the Swiss city of a perforated ulcer. Beckett praised Joyce for his heroic life as a writer and was undoubtedly inspired by his example. Beckett's work is notable for its dark humour. Here's an example from his novel Murphy, which he completed in Foxrock in 1936. It shows how the novel's protagonist wishes to arrange his own funeral. With regard to these, the disposal of these, my body, mind, and soul, I desire that they be burnt and placed in a paper bag and brought to the Abbey Theatre, Lower Abbey Street, Dublin, and without pause into what the great and good Lord Chesterfield calls the necessary house, where their happiest hours have been spent, on the right as one goes down into the pit. And I desire that the chain be there pulled upon them, if possible during the performance of a piece, the whole to be executed without ceremony or show of grief.
Very good. Very good. Excellent, Paul. Thank you so much for that. That was excellent. Now, another figure that you're so well known for is Joyce himself. And I know that June the 16th, Bloomsday, is a very busy time for you because you're involved in all sorts of street theatre and the likes, and readings, and from early morning till late at night, I believe. So let's move on to that and share some of your words from him.
Ulysses. Set in Dublin on June the 16th, 1904, it describes the lives of a diverse group of Dubliners from dawn until the early hours of the following day. Unlike some of his contemporaries, such as the poet T.S. Eliot, who represented but could not quite conceal his disgust with common experience, Joyce's writing, on the other hand, is attuned to the ordinary. Where Yeats sees shopkeepers fumbling in their greasy tills as the demise of romantic Ireland, Joyce sets scenes in bars and shops and makes his Ulysses, his hero, bloom out of a man who sells ads for a paper. Published in Paris in 1922, Ulysses quickly attracted both occult fame and notoriety for its representation of sex and bodily functions. On the other hand, critics like Eliot responded with enthusiasm and asserted that the use of Homer's Odyssey to make a parallel between contemporaneity and antiquity had the importance of a scientific discovery. Joyce's uninhibited approach to sexual matters and his interest in the coarse, as much as in the refined aspects of human behaviour, had already led to the banning of the serial form of the book in the United States. In due course, the book was also banned there and in Britain. The first British edition was not published until 1936, the first US edition having been published in 1933. Joyce's fellow countryman, George Bernard Shaw, wrote about the book to the publisher Sylvia Beach. To me, it is all hideously real. I have walked those streets and known those shops, and have heard and taken part in those conversations. It is, however, some consolation to find that at last somebody has felt deeply enough about it to face the horror of writing it all down and using his literary genius to force people to face it. Sure, as ever, the dramatist exaggerates the horror. Ulysses is the epitome of the everyday, but it is a comedy. It combines the panoramic social vision that Joyce set forth in Dubliners with the focus on the individual of a portrait into an encyclopedic depiction of a day in the life of Dublin society. Ulysses starts with the Joyce-like artist figure of Stephen Dedalus, but in the fourth chapter, a new protagonist is introduced, the Jewish Irishman Leopold Bloom, who corresponds to Odysseus in Homer's epic. If Stephen is a young intellectual of 22, Bloom is a married man of 38 who enjoys his breakfast. So in the kitchen of number 7 Echo Street, Leopold Bloom is thinking about breakfast while his wife is sleeping upstairs. Ham and eggs? No. Thursday. Better a pork kidney at Lucatz's. While the kettle is boiling, she might like something tasty. Thin bread and butter she likes in the morning. I'm going round the corner. Be back in a minute. You don't want anything for breakfast? No, she did not want anything. Plasto's high-grade ha. A white slip of paper, quite safe. The latchkey, not there. In the trousers I left off. I must get it. A potato I have. Creaky wardrobe. No use disturbing her. He pulled the hall door to after him, very quietly. No use disturbing her. All right till I come back, anyhow. The sun was nearing the steeple of George's church. Be a warm day, I fancy, especially in these black clothes. Feel it more. Black conducts, refracts, is it? The heat. But I couldn't go in that light suit. Make a picnic of it. Boland's bread van, delivering with trays our daily. But she prefers yesterday's loaves. Turnovers crisp, crowns hot. Makes you feel young. Walk along a strand, strange land, come to a city gate. Larry O'Rourke's. Bald head over the blind, cute old codger. Stop and say a word about the funeral, perhaps. Sad thing about poor Dignam, Mr. O'Rourke. Good day, Mr. O'Rourke. Good day to you. Lovely weather, sir. 'Tis all that. Where do they get the money? Coming up red-headed curates from the County Leitrim. Then lo and behold, they blossom out as Adam Findlaters and Dan Tallons. And think of the competition. General thirst. Good puzzle would be cross Dublin without passing a pub. After buying the last kidney and Lucatz's, Bloom walks back along Dorset Street, reading the wrapper in which the Jewish butcher has put the meat. Agendath Netaim, Planters Company, to purchase vast sandy tracts from Turkish government and plant with eucalyptus trees. Nothing doing. Still, an idea behind it, silver powdered olive trees. Oranges in tissue paper, packed in crates. Citrons too. Wonder is poor Citron still in St. Kevin's parade. And Mastiansky with his old zither. Pleasant evenings we had then. Molly in Citron's basket chair. Nice to hold. Cool waxen fruit. Lift it to the nostrils and smell that perfume. Heavy, sweet, wild perfume. Coming all that way. Spain, Gibraltar, Mediterranean, the Levant. A cloud began to cover the sun. Slowly, holy. Brimstone, they called it, raining down. The cities of the plain. Sodom, Gomorrah, Edom. A bent hag crossed from Cassidy's, clutching a naggin bottle, be the neck. The oldest people wandered far away over all the earth, captivity to captivity, multiplying, dying, being born everywhere. Now it could bear no more. Dead, an old woman's. A morning mouth, bad images. Got up wrong side of the bed. Must begin again those Sandow's exercises. On the hands, down. To smell the gentle smoke of tea, fume of the pan, sizzling butter. Be near her ample, bed-warmed flesh. Yes, yes, runs. She runs to meet me, a girl with gold hair on the wind. Two letters and a card lay on the whole floor. Mrs. Marion Bloom, bold hand, Mrs. Marion. A teapot on the tray, everything on it. Bread and butter for, sugar spoon, her cream, yes. She set the brasses jingling as she raised herself briskly, an elbow on the pillow. He asked, who was the letter from? Oh, Boylan, he's bringing the programme. What are you singing? Oh, that sheet of M with J.C. Doyle and Love's Old Sweet Song. Would you like the window open a little? She doubled a slice of bread in her mouth. What time is the funeral? 11, I think. That book, get another of Paul de Kock's. Nice name he has. There's a smell of burn. Did you leave something on the fire? The kidney. He hurried out, stepping hastily down the stairs with a flurried stork's legs. Only a little burnt. He tossed it off the pan. Will happen, yes. Is that boiling? Well off? I noticed he had a good smell of his breath dancing. The bells of George's church. Hey ho, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho. Poor Dignam. Bloom, who works as an advertising canvasser, surveys the hoardings at the corner of Westland Row with a professional eye. Cantrell and Cochrane's ginger ale. Cleary's summer sale. Leah, Mrs. Banman Palmer. Hamlet she played last night. Male impersonator. Perhaps he was a woman. Why Ophelia committed suicide. Poor Papa. Poor man. I'm glad I didn't go into the room that day to look at his face. Oh dear, oh dear. He drew the letter from his pocket. The lane is safer. Open it. Dear Henry, I got your last letter to me, and thank you very much for it. Why did you enclose the stamps? I do wish I could punish you for that. When will we meet? Are you not happy in your home, you poor little naughty boy? Goodbye now, naughty darling, and write by return to your longing, Martha. P.S. Do tell me, what kind of perfume does your wife use? I want to know. Language of flowers. He had reached the open back door of All Hallows. Something going on. Some sodality. Pity so empty. Nice discreet place to be next some girl. These pots we have to wear. We ought to have hats modelled on our heads. The priest was rinsing out the chalice, then tossed off the dregs smartly. Wine makes it more aristocratic. And for example, if he drank what they are used to, Guinness's porter or some temperance beverage or Cantrell and Cochrane's ginger ale, aromatic, doesn't give them any of it. A pious fraud, but quite right. Otherwise, you'd only have one old boozer worse than another coming along cadging for a drink. Quite right. Perfectly right, that is. Molly was in fine voice that day. The Stabat Mater of Rossini. I could feel the thrill in the air, the people looking up. Quis est homo? O God, our refuge and our strength. English, throw them the bone. I remember slightly. Wonderful organisation, certainly. Goes like clockwork. Confession. Everyone wants to. Then I will tell you all. Punish me, please. Great weapon in their hands. More than doctor or solicitor. Woman dying to. And I, oh, and did you, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. And why did you? Square-headed chaps, those must be in Rome. They work the whole show. And don't they rake in the money too? Do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust Satan down to hell, and with him those other wicked spirits that wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Better be shoving along. Come around with the plate, perhaps. Pay your Easter duty. Hello. Are those buttons of my waistcoat open all the time? Women enjoy it. Never tell you. Oh, but excuse me, there's just a fluff. Or their skirt behind, placket unhooked. Glimpses of the moon. Annoyed if you don't. Why didn't you tell me before? Still, like you better untidy. Good job it wasn't farther south. How goes the time? 1:15. Better get that lotion made up. Where? Ah, yes. Sweeney's in Lincoln Place. The chemist turned back page after page. Enough stuff here to chloroform you. Sweet almond oil and tincture of benzoin, and then orange flower water. It certainly did make her skin so delicate, white like wax. Oh, and white wax also brings out the darkness of her eyes. Spanish. Nice smell these soaps have. Pure. Card soap. Sweet. Lemony wax. I'll take this one. Enjoy a bath now. Clean trough of water, cool enamel, the gentle tepid stream. This is my body. Mr. Bloom arrives at Glasnevin Cemetery for the funeral of Paddy Dignam. Coffin now. Got here before us, dead as he is. Too many in this world, so much dead weight. Felt heavier myself stepping out of that bath. First the stiff, then the friends of the stiff. Mr. Kernan added, the service of the Irish Church used in Mount Jerome is simpler, more impressive, I must say. Mr. Bloom gave a prudent assent. The language, of course, was another thing. I am the resurrection and the life. That touches a man's inmost heart. It does, Mr. Bloom said. Your heart, perhaps. But what price the fellow in the 6 feet by 2 with his toes to the daisies? No touching that. Seat of the affections. Broken heart. Pump, after all. Pumping thousands of gallons of blood every day. One fine day it gets pumped up. There you are. Lots of them lying around here. Lungs, hearts, livers, damn the thing else. That last day idea. Knocking them all up, out of their graves. Come forth, Lazarus. And he came fifth and lost the job. Then every fella melting around for his liver and his lights and the rest of his chaps. Would he find damn all of himself that morning? Mine over there, towards Finglas. The plot I bought. Mama, poor Mama, and little Rudy. Back to the world again. I do not like that other world, she wrote. No more do I. Plenty to see and hear and feel yet. Feel live, warm beings near you. Let them sleep in their maggoty beds. They are not going to get me this innings. Warm beds, warm, full-blooded life. In the heart of the Hibernian metropolis, Mr. Bloom goes through the printing works of the Freeman's Journal in Abbey Street. Gentlemen of the press, the machines clanked in 3/4 time, thump, 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 thump. Now, if he got paralysed there and no one knew how to stop them, they'd clank on and on the same, printed over and over and up and back. Monkey doodle the whole thing. You want a clear head. Interview with the editor. Just this ad. I spoke with Mr. Keyes just now. He'll give a renewal for 2 months, he says. After he'll see. House of Keyes, don't you see? His name is Keyes. It's a play on the name. But he practically promised he'd give the renewal. He just wants a little puff. What will I tell him, Mr. Crawford? KMA. Will you tell him he can kiss my arse? Tell him that, straight from the stable. A bit nervy. Look out for squalls. All off for a drink. Arm in arm. Usual blarney. Wonder is that young Daedalus the moving spirit? Been walking in muck somewhere. Careless chap. Well, Mr. Crawford, if I can get the design, it's worth a short par. He gives the ad, I think. I'll tell him. KMRIA. He can kiss my Royal Irish arse anytime he likes. Tell him. Bloom crosses the river en route to the National Library to look up an advert in the Kilkenny People. On O'Connell Bridge, he feeds the gulls on the Liffey. I'm not going to throw any more. Penny quite enough. Not a thanks I get. Not even a caw. They spread foot and mouth disease too. Eat pig like pig. But then why is it that saltwater fish are not salty? How's that? His eyes sought answer from the river and saw a rowboat rock lazily its plastered board. Kinos, 1 shilling, trousers. Good idea, that. Wonder if he pays rent to the corporation. How can you own water, really? It's always flowing as in a stream, because life is a stream. All kinds of places are good for ads. That quack doctor for the clap used to be stuck up in all the greenhouses. Think no more about that. After 1, he crossed at Nassau Street corner. Duke Street. Here we are. Must eat. The Burton. Feel better then. Oh, see the animals feed. Men, men, men. Sad boozer's eyes. Am I like that? Oh, see ourselves as others see us. Hungry man is an angry man. Roast beef and cabbage. Yeah, one stew, 2 corn and cabbage, and point of stout. I couldn't eat a morsel here. Lick it off the plate, man. Ouch. I hate dirty eaters. Get a light snack in Davy Burns. Stopgap. Keep me going. Had a good breakfast. Davy Burns Moral Pub. What will I take now? Let me see. I take a glass of Burgundy and have you a cheese sandwich? Eat, drink, and be merry. And then casual wards full after. Cheese digests all but itself. Mighty cheese. A cheese sandwich then. Gorgonzola, have you? Nice wine it is. Tasted better because I'm not thirsty. Bath, of course, does that. Just a bite or 2. Then about 6 o'clock I can. 6. Time will be gone then. She. Sun's heat it is. Telling me memory. Hidden under wild ferns on Hose. Below us bay, sleeping sky. Wildly I lay on her, kissed her. Eyes, her lips, her stretched neck beating, woman's breasts, full in her blouse of nun's veiling. Kissed, she kissed me, and me now. That Kilkenny people in the National Library, now I must. Mr. Bloom came to Kildare Street. First I must, library. He sees Blazes Boylan approaching and changes direction, turning from the library towards the museum. Straw hat in sunlight, tan shoes, turned up trousers. It is. To the right, museum, goddesses. Is it? Almost certain. Won't look. Wine in my face. Why did I? Oh, safe in a minute. No, didn't see me. After 2, just at the gate. My heart. Look for something, I. Where did I? Aganda, neta im, trial pockets, hanker, Freeman, where did I put potato, purse, where? Hurry, moment more, my heart, where did I put? There, yes, gate, safe. Ulysses is remarkable for the way different chapters adopt different writing styles. Chapter 10, Wandering Rocks, is notable for the way it cuts up and interweaves different events happening simultaneously throughout the city. The Master Dignam section is like an extract from Dubliners, but there is more depth and diversity of tone. Comedy mingles with pathos and the grotesque. There is also closer identification with the plight of the speaker. The realism is almost cinematic in Master Dignam's description of the removal of the coffin from the family home and detailed recollection of his dead father's face. Master Dignam walked along Nassau Street, shifted the pork steaks to his other hand. His collar sprang up and he tucked it down. The blooming stud was too small for the buttonhole of the shirt. Blooming into it. He met schoolboys with satchel. I'm not going tomorrow either. Stay away till Monday. He met other schoolboys. Do they notice I'm in mourning? Uncle Barney said he'd get it into the paper tonight. Then they'd all see it in the paper. And my name printed and Pa's name. His face got all grey instead of being red like it was, and there was a fly walking over it, up to his eye. The scrunch that was, when they were screwing the screws into the coffin, and the bumps when they were bringing it downstairs. Pa was inside it, and Ma crying in the parlour, and Uncle Barney telling the men how to get it round the bend. A big coffin it was, and high and heavy looking. How was that? The last night, Pa was boozed. He was standing on the landing there, bawling out for his boots to go out to Tunney's for to booze more. And he looked bushy and short in his shirt. Never see him again. Death, that is. My father is dead. He told me to be a good son to Ma. I couldn't hear the other things he said, but I saw his tongue and his teeth trying to say them better. Poor Pa. That was Mr. Dignam, my father. I hope he's in purgatory now, because he went to confession to Father Conroy on Saturday night. It's now 4 o'clock. Blazes Boylan leaves the Ormond Hotel to make his way to Echo Street for his meeting with Molly Bloom. Bloom, who has been watching and observed, stays to hear Simon Dedalus sing When First I Saw That Form Endearing. What time is that? Asked Blazes Boylan. 4! I'm off! Wait a shake, begged Lenihan. drinking quickly. I wanted to tell you. Come on to blazes. Then good to go. Got the horn or what? Wait! And Bloom, in liver gravy, Bloom mashed potatoes. First night, when first I saw her, at Matt Dillon's in Terranure. Yellow, black lace she wore. Musical chairs. We two the last. Fate, quick round, halt. Down she sat. I turned her music. Full voice, bosom I saw, both full, throat warbling. First I saw. She thanked me. Fate, Spanishy eyes. At me, luring, alluring, alone. Jig, jogged, stopped. Dandy tan shoes of dandy Boylan socks, sky blue clocks came light to earth. One rapped on a door, one tapped with a knock. Did he knock, bold a cock with a loud, proud knocker, with a cock, cara, 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 cock, cock, cock. Under the sandwich bell lay on a bier of bread one lonely, last sardine of summer, blue, alone. In Barney Kiernan's, Bloom encounters the citizen, a nationalist advocate. Lenihan blames Bloom for not giving him a racing tip, and prejudice spreads like wildfire. So we turned into Barney Kiernan's, and there sure enough was the citizen, and that bloody mangy mongrel Gary Owen, and he waiting for what the sky would drop in the way of drink. Bloom was talking and talking. Persecution, all the history of the world is full of it, perpetuating national hatred among nations. What is your nation, if I may ask? Says the citizen. Ireland, says Bloom. I was born here, Ireland. The citizen said nothing, only cleared the spit out of his gullet. Show us over the drink. Which is which? That's mine, says Joe, as the devil said to the dead policeman. And I belong to a race too, says Bloom, and is hated and persecuted. Even now, this very moment, this very instant, robbed, insulted, hated, persecuted, taking what belongs to us by right, and this very moment, sold by auction up in Morocco like slaves or cattle. Are you talking about the New Jerusalem? Says the citizen. I'm talking about injustice. Right, says John Wise. Stand up to it then, with force, like men. But it's no use, says Bloom. Force, hatred, history, all that. That's not life for men and women. Insult and hatred. And everybody knows it's the very opposite of that is really life. What? Says Alf. Love. I mean the opposite of hatred. I must go now. And who's hindering you? And off he pops like greased lightning. A new apostle to the Gentiles, says the citizen. Universal love. Love, Maya. He's a nice pattern of a Romeo and Juliet. I was just looking around to see who the happy thought would strike when be damned in he comes in again, letting on to be in a hell of a hurry. Mean bloody Scot. Oh, don't tell anyone, says the citizen. I beg your pardon, said Bloom. Oh, let me alone. 3 cheers for Israel. Hey, mister, your fly's open, mister. And said Bloom, Mendelssohn was a Jew, and Karl Marx and Mercadante, and Spinoza, and the Saviour was a Jew, and his father was a Jew, your God. He had no father, says Martin. That'll do now. Well, his uncle was a Jew, says Bloom. Your God was a Jew. Christ was a Jew like me. By Jesus, I'll pay that bloody Jew man for using the holy name. By Jesus, I'll crucify him, so I will. Give us that bloody biscuit box here. Where is he? Till I murder him! Ah! Hold on, citizen. Stop. Oh, dear God, the sun was in his eyes. I'd have left him for dead. Cabinet sent it into the county Longford. The bloody nag took fright, and the old mongrel after the car like bloody hell, and the tin box clattering along the street. Did they kill him or what? After him, Gabby! After him, boy! 100 to 5. Jesus, he took the value of it out of him. I promise you. The summer evening had begun to fold the world in its mysterious embrace. Bloom is now on Sandymount Strand. A girl he had been secretly ogling has left with her friends. Didn't look back when she was going down the Strand. Wouldn't give that satisfaction. All quiet on Howth now, the distant hills seen, where we, the rhododendrons. I am a fool, perhaps. He gets the plums, and I the plum stones. All that old hill has seen. Names change, that's all. Lovers, yum, yum. Better not stick here all night like a limpet. This weather makes you dull. Must be getting on for 9 by the light. Go home? No. Call to the hospital to see. Hope she's over. Long day I've had. Martha, the bath, funeral, house of keys, museum with those goddesses, then that baller in Barney Kiernan's. I got my own back there. Following an inebriated Stephen Dedalus by train to Amiens Street, Bloom finds himself on Talbot Street, close to the Mallet Street entrance to Nighttown. Stitch in my side! Why did I run? What's that? A flasher? Searchlight? Ah, the brigade, of course. South side, anyhow. We're safe. London's burning, on fire, on fire. Run, quick, better cross here. At the portal to the brothel area, fantasy merges with reality as Bloom looks for directions. Buenas noches, señorita Blanca. ¿Qué calle es esta? Password? Shroud Mabbott? Merci? Esperanto? Slán Lat? Gaelic League spy sent by that fire eater. Are you looking for someone? He's inside with his friend. Stephen is accused by the brothel madam of breaking a lamp, but Bloom shows that only the shade is dented. Stephen is then accosted by a soldier, but Bloom again comes to the rescue and gets him back on his feet. Hey, oh, Mr. Dedalus. Stephen, to breathe. Not hurt anyhow. Face reminds me of his poor mother. Ferguson, I think I caught. A girl. Some girl. Best thing could happen him. After the adventure in Nighttown, Bloom returns home to number 7 Echo Street with Stephen Dedalus. After cocoa, conversation, and urination, the latter departs, and Bloom goes upstairs to the bedroom where Molly is sleeping. Bloom's acts. He deposited the articles of clothing on a chair, removed his remaining articles of clothing, took from beneath the bolster at the head of the bed a folded long white nightshirt, inserted his head and arms into the proper apertures of the nightshirt, removed a pillow from the head to the foot of the bed, prepared the bed linen accordingly, and entered the bed. What did his limbs, when gradually extended, encounter? New clean bed linen, additional odours, the presence of a human form, female, hers, the imprint of a human form, male, not his, some crumbs, some flakes of potted meat recooked, which he removed. Then he kissed the plump, mellow, yellow, smellow melons of her rump. On each plump, melanous hemisphere, in their mellow yellow furrow, with obscure, prolonged, provocative, melon-smellinous osculation. What moved visibly above the listener and the narrator's invisible thoughts? The upcast reflection of a lamp and shade, an inconstant series of concentric circles of varying gradations of light and shadow. Womb weary, he rests. He has travelled with Sinbad the sailor and Tinbad the tailor and Trinbad the jailer and Winbad the whaler and Ninbad the nailer and Finbad the failer and Binbad the baler and Pinbad the paler and Minbad the mailer and Hinbad the hailer and Minbad the railer and Dinbad the daler and Kinbad the caler and Exinbad the fathaler. Where? Going to a dark bed, there was a square round Sinbad the sailor's roc's orc's egg, in the night of the bed of all the orcs of the rocks of Darkinbad the bright daler. Where? The last episode, Penelope, consists of 8 long, unpunctuated sentences, in which Molly, half awake, reflects to herself on her upbringing in Gibraltar, where she was the daughter of a major in the British Army garrison, and also on her later life in Dublin. Metaphorically, she sees off her unwanted suitors by letting them know exactly what she thinks of them during the course of her monologue. One such, Lenehan, is described as, "That sponger, he was making free with me after the Glen Creed dinner." At the end, she is able to savour memories of a journey to Howth Head 16 years ago, when Bloom proposed to her. Ample and passionate, lyrical and earthy, Molly Bloom in the Penelope episode embodies Joyce's all-encompassing vision of life's diversity. "Oh, move over your big carcass for the love of Mike. Oh, so well may he sleep and sigh. The great suggester, Don Poldo de la Flora. I like my bed. God, here we are, as bad as ever, after 16 years, how many houses were we in at all? The sun shines for you, he said, the day we were lying among the rhododendrons on Holt Head, in the grey tweed suit and the straw hash, the day I got him to propose to me. Yes. First I gave him a bit of seed cake out of my mouth, and it was leap year, a night now, 16 years ago. My God, after that long kiss, I near lost my breath. Yes, he said, I was a flower of the mountain. So are we flowers all, a woman's body. Yes, that was the one true thing he said in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes, that was why I liked him. Because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get round him. And I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes, and I wouldn't answer first, only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things that he didn't know of. The Greeks and the Jews and the Arabs and the devil knows who else, from all the ends of Europe and Duke Street. And the night we missed the boat at Algeciras. And the sea, crimson sometimes, like fire. And Gibraltar as a girl, where I was a flower of the mountain. When I put a rose in my hair, like the Andalusian girls used. Or shall I wear a red? Yes. And how he kissed me under the Moorish wall, and I thought, it's well him as another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask again, yes. And then he asked me, would I? Yes, to say yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him and drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts, all perfume. Yes, and his heart was going like mad. And yes, I said, yes, I will. Yes. The length of Ulysses may seem daunting, but is actually part of the pleasure of reading it once you get going. Ulysses can be enjoyed for its episodes in the same way as a television soap, and in itself is like a vast excerpt from a continuous story, a day in the life, which, due to the richness of detail, the more you read, the more you get out of it. Undoubtedly, it is challenging. It questions literary and social conventions. It challenges the reader, and it challenged the author. It is also rewarding and consistently funny. A book of the everyday for everyone, it is simple and complex to be read and reread, enjoyed and savoured. It is perhaps not outrageous to claim that Ulysses is a text which gets closer to what it is to be alive than any other work of fiction. It is a book of life for life. And that brings me to the end of Beckett by night, Joyce by day, this excursion into the relationship of the two writers and foray into their work, which I hope has given you the incentive for further reading. Thank you.
Excellent, Paul. That was superb. Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting it to be so theatrical. Lovely surprise.
Yeah, I think I had the script from the actual events from last year, from doing them in the Gables. I had the script, and then it was a matter of kind of working out how I could get them to work in this format. And I thought, oh well, let's give it a go.
Well, isn't it fantastic though that that despite what's going on, that we have this opportunity to still communicate and perform.
It is actually, it is, and it's great, and it's in some ways you can get things from performing in this way that you can't. You can do very whispers and things like that. If you did those on a stage, they wouldn't come across, but a whisper will come across.
Absolutely.
So you can do things with this medium that you couldn't do on the stage.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
In the acting world, are people embracing Zoom to try and get theatre out there, or?
I think they are. I think there's quite a lot of momentum behind it, but I think people are still a bit caught. They're so unsure that that they're still trying to work things out. Let's get back into the theatres and so on, which of course we must. That's the but on the other hand, being realistic, how likely is that to happen within the next 6 months? And all credit to you, Alan, for pushing ahead, because I think you're doing the right thing. You probably can't do everything that you normally do.
No, I can't.
No, you're doing the right thing. You've made, and I think that's, why it's a pleasure to respond.
Well, that's how it started, Paul, which you probably aren't aware of. This is how it started. Literally during the second lockdown was announced.
Right.
I had to let students down who I was teaching drawing.
Yes.
And so I immediately went online using Facebook Live initially.
Okay.
And I did classes, for an hour on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And that came to a sort of a natural conclusion after 12 weeks.
Yes.
And we moved into another phase as well, which loosened things up a bit. So
yes.
I basically said, look, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I got this sort of feedback which suggested to me that people would love to see artists in their own workspace,
Yeah,
so
very good.
the idea of studio visits. So we've done it a number of times with different artists, but we've also spoken to gallery owners. We had Yeats, who's the Dublin City Arts Officer.
Yes.
We've had John Minhan, the photographer. So it's not purely artists, but it's all embracing. And that's why it's such a pleasure to have you.
Okay.
Because you're an absolute wonderful actor.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
You really bring everything to life so much.
Oh,
so it was super to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I very much appreciate the opportunity of being here. It's great.
Good. Yeah. All right, listen, we leave it there because it was quite a long episode. So, and I'll talk to you offline in a minute, okay?
Okay, thanks, Alan. Thanks very much.
And everybody listening, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Alan. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.